This is a Triple J podcast.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Science with Dr. Karl. My name is Lucy Smith, and this week we were joined by Professor Claire Collins from the University of Newcastle. We got into your questions about food, diet, the gut, poo, of course. In fact, I think we sort of begin and end the episode with that, which feels like a nice sandwich for Claire Collins today. She also mentions at the top here some research they're doing into the connections between nutrition and ADHD. There's a survey that's happening right now that they're collecting research from adult men and women, especially women. So if you want to take the survey, if you want to get involved, we've got a link for you in the show notes and she'll tell you a little bit more about it right now. Let's jump in.
And we have Professor Claire Collins, who is a real dietitian and has studied it for decades, as opposed to me, who did 8 hours only as part of my medical degree. She is my go-to person on dietetics. She knows all this stuff in magnesium, B6. Ask her. Professor Claire Collins, welcome again.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for being with us, Claire.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Lucy, and thanks, Karl.
We've had you on before. You are a friend of the show, and we always like to catch up with what you've been up to, what you've been looking at. You have been looking at the links between ADHD and nutrition recently. I'm sure we could talk about this for the next hour, but do you want to give us a bit of a Cliff's Notes of what you've discovered or what you've been working on?
Yeah, so I've got a young researcher in my team, and her name's Dr. Rebecca Collins, and believe it or not, we're actually not related.
Not related?
We're not related. And she has ADHD herself and wants to understand more about the link between nutrition and ADHD in adults. So if you come to No Money, No Time, our website, on the podcast page, we're recruiting for her study at the moment. She tells me that when you have ADHD, it's much harder to get organised for healthy eating. And she doesn't think people should be behind the 8 ball and is determined to solve that. So, yeah, it's a survey, an online survey, adult women and men, and she's particularly flagging women because they tend to not get diagnosed with ADHD as much as men.
That's so true, and then diagnosed later in life as well. Yeah. So what kind of, I guess, have you found so far when it comes to nutrition and ADHD and the link between the two?
Well, one of the things where she's at, because hardly anybody's thought to do this study before, but it looks like dietary patterns may not be as healthy. And because the food you eat contributes to your well-being, as well as, you know, all the chronic diseases we hear, she thinks people might be missing out on the ability to use food to help them perform well, feel better. So you'll be getting in on groundbreaking from the ground up research if you join her study.
Yeah, amazing.
And treatment can make a huge difference. So one of my daughter's friends had it, and to the extent that she would turn up for an exam and not know what the exam was in high school, whether it was mathematics or ancient Greek or whatever, and with the treatment is now doing a master's in a very skilled field.
Incredible.
Can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Well,
really important.
if you've got any follow-up questions on that, 0439 75 7555 is where you can text in. Let's launch straight in. We've got Sarah in Adelaide. Dr. Sarah, you've got a question about soda water.
I have. Hi, doctors. I know soft drinks are bad for you because of the chemicals and the sugar, despite the fact they taste good. But what about plain soda water, especially the sort that you make at home? I've got one of those soda dioxide, carbon dioxide ones. Does the carbon dioxide damage your gut, or can I drink as much plain soda water as I want?
Firstly, my daughter can't have bubbly water because she suffers from an incredibly rare condition called aburpia. A meaning not burp. She can't burp.
Really?
Yeah, exactly right. I told you it was
Did you make
incredibly...
that up?
I made up the name, but that's what we call it at home, aburpia. But it's real. She can't have sparkling water. Number two, I was told by the dentist, the answer is I don't know, but this is what I was told, and I haven't chased it up in a peer-reviewed literature, so don't trust it. So this is a soft answer. I have been told by the dentist that the carbonated waters with minerals in them are more acid than just carbonated tap water. So if you're buying imported water that's got carbonated with minerals, on average it'll be more acid than just the straight water that you add carbon dioxide to, and that apparently is not acid enough to damage your teeth. If there's an expert, a biochemist, no, look, this is a really specialised field. Somebody ring in 0439 757, which is the name of a jet, 555, because the 5 has got a tail, and the tail looks like J. Is that right? Is that right?
He did it.
Right, okay.
You see, you've got your association now.
Okay, now I've got to remember the association.
No, you got it, exactly. Hey, we've got time. Hey, Sarah, let's see what we can do about this one, okay?
All right, fabulous. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sarah. We've got Luke in Kurrajong here. Luke, you're a bit of an athlete. What's going on?
Hey, doctors. I've started competing in strongman and powerlifting competitions, and that means I've got to cut weight and compete in a certain weight class. What's the best way to go about losing a little bit of weight, but also keeping as much strength as I can?
Hi, it's Claire here. So one of the key things will be meeting your protein requirements and then reducing your total kilojoules. So you really need to know how much energy you expend a day. And you're in that unusual group of people who likely need to monitor what you're eating. There's a fantastic Australian app called Easy Diet Diary. You can scan some barcodes, but it will give you your nutrients. So you can look at your grams of protein per day and see if they're meeting your requirements. But in terms of like making the weight, it is going to be about monitoring your body and making sure you're having the kilojoules you need. So you've still got enough energy to perform, but not excess kilojoules so that you then store those as body fat. And, you know, I know that you were keen to make sure that you still performed well and that carbohydrates are the main fuel for your muscles when you're performing. So, yeah, you're in the group where you need to watch everything fairly closely because you're competing.
And can I ask you, so you'll be performing on stage and hopefully, according to the way you guys work, you'll be dropping your body fat down to ridiculously low levels? Are you that sort of person?
Not in a bodybuilding sense, in a strength, in the strength aspect. No, so it's a bit different to bodybuilding.
Okay, so you're going for strength rather than look. So you don't have that terrible thing where you look fabulous, but if you stand up suddenly you're faint. Right.
Hopefully not.
Now, I've got one bit of advice which I don't know if Claire will agree with, but I found it works for me for if you go to a country where there's different bacteria in the world from what you have at home. So the way I've survived and not got food poisoning is everything is fried in front of you. Mate, cornflakes, fruit, apples, it doesn't matter what it is, because if you put it in water, it only gets to 100 degrees C. And they let it cool down and the bacteria can jump onto it. But if they fry it in oil, let's say 150, and they give it to you straight away and you cool it down and eat it, there's definitely no bacteria. On the other hand, you might have what Claire might regard as a suboptimal diet of saturated fats, perhaps?
Yeah, well, if your competition's in Australia, hopefully, I don't know where your competition was. Sorry, I missed that. Yeah, so I think you said your key goal was to not lose your strength. So the key thing is to get enough kilojoules so that you can fuel your body and get enough protein so that you don't lose any of your muscles while you're trying to make weight.
Now, I heard a podcast by Wendy Zuckerman, Science Versus, about creatine, and apparently the way that creatine works, to one degree, is it lets you push yourself a little bit harder in each set of reps that you're doing. So it's acting like a kind of ATP or adenosine triphosphate. And the person who was talking about this was a bodybuilder and strength lifter who was a professor of that and dietetics at Texas University. Is that your understanding of how creatine works?
Well, see, sports nutrition is such a specialised area that's why we have a sub-branch of our profession called Sports Dietitians Australia. And they're the people who work with athletes so that you win the medal, or, you know, you get your best performance. So I'm going to say that's a question that you need to be asking one of them once you get down to sports supplements.
So any sports scientists, please ring in on 0439 something 555.
So we need to do a sports science, a sports nutrition episode as well.
A subset.
But I can tell you that I have talked to Sally Walker, who's the president of Sports Dietitians Australia, and the thing that sticks in my mind that she alerted us to is the Australian Institute of Sport has a list of all the categories of supplements that are okay and not okay.
Wow.
So that's really what you want to know. And the interesting thing on that I found out is that caffeine one time was banned. It's not, but it has to be still used within the guidelines and as part of your training. So if there's any other supplements you're thinking of, all you athletes out there, be sure to go and look at the Australian Institute of Sport hierarchy, because there are some where they could be contaminants, but they're on the banned list.
Thanks, Luke. We've got Jay in Wombat Forest here. Dr. Jay, what's your question?
Morning, doctors. My question's about poo. I live in the forest and I've got a dog and I've got wallabies and kangaroos, and I'm noticing that they obviously don't have the amenities that we do and they don't wipe when they poo. And I'm wondering, if we had an optimal diet, would we be able to achieve a clean wipe?
Well, it's not necessarily an optimal diet that I would say, but if you had a super, super high fibre diet, then you probably wouldn't have to wipe, you're right. So what's interesting is that if you look at some societies where they're still doing hunter and gathering, their dietary fibre intakes are like 2 to 3 times what we recommend in Australia, which is around 30 grams a day for men and a bit under that for women. And then your poos are like sausages. Yeah, well-formed, squirt them out, squirt it out, and,
a clean
go
injection,
off.
a clean exit?
Pretty much.
Okay.
So,
and that's, did you look up the Bristol scale?
It's probably even a solid sausage on the Bristol scale, which is the firmest end of the Bristol stool chart. And it's a little chart that actually graphically, pictorially, rates the look of your poos from like runny mess through to pebbles, through to the sausages at the most formed end.
And you want brown floaty sausages-ish?
Yeah, but if they might even sink a bit if you were having 70 grams to 100 grams of fibre per day, because there's just so much fibre and they're so big that, they're never going to float. Yeah, so an ideal bowel motion is you sit down, you get the urge, you pass it straight away, and there's no pain or straining. So that's what it should be like. So definitely
nice.
Increase the fibre that you're having by eating whole foods, and maybe you'll be squirting them out like the dogs and cats.
Okay, one last question. What about the posture, squatting versus sitting?
Yeah, squatting is the right posture for getting your colon and your rectum into the right spot to just squirt it out. So for people who do have like functional constipation, one of the recommendations is to get a footstool, like you use for toddlers, and put your feet up, lift the lid of the toilet bowl and just sit on the toilet bowl, because then your bottom drops down more and you get more into our caveman position, and it's easier for you to pass a bowel motion.
Jay, does that help?
That's fantastic. With the stool, should your knees be above your waist?
Higher than what they are, maybe not above your waist, because if you lifted the toilet lid, then you're actually going to fall in. So definitely higher, and you can experiment for what gives you the most comfortable position.
So for a solid ejection of floaties, more fibre.
Yes,
More fibre.
absolutely, and water,
Get a
and the
stool.
water with it, of course, yes.
And water.
Yep.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jay. Professor Claire Collins is with myself and Dr. Karl on our science episode this morning, answering all your questions about nutrition, about diet. And Claire, you mentioned earlier that you were doing a study alongside some of your colleagues about the links between nutrition and ADHD. We've got so many people texting in about this. Where can they fill out this survey online?
Yeah, so I thought it was so interesting, and I was really surprised nobody had already done this, that I interviewed Dr. Rebecca Collins, and on our No Money, No Time website, we've got one tab that says podcast, where I talk to people about their research. Mm-hmm. And if you just scroll down, we've got a link in the notes on the website, and you can click the link and it'll take you through to the study. Adult men and women, and she especially wants women because you're normally missed out when it comes to talking about the diagnosis.
Yeah, a lot of people mentioning as well that maybe they don't discuss this because they've been, learned to mask their feelings and mask their ADHD. Alex in Gippsland, we are talking food. What do you want to know?
Hi, doctors. My question was that when you open up a packet of salt and vinegar chips, why can you taste the chips before you eat them?
I can tell you how you can measure it. It's called Schlerin photography, Schlerin. And what you're photographing is not just the object, not the air, but the changes in refractive index. Now, think about you get a stick, you shove it in water, and suddenly it looks bent. Or you see certain photographs of aeroplanes going through the air, and if they do it with Schlerin photography, you can see the pressure cone around them. What happens when you open the packet is you've got all these delicious things that have been, how do I say, brightly coloured and maximised to make you as addicted as possible.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the smell. So when you open the smell, it actually doesn't trigger your actual taste buds, but it usually triggers your memory, because if you see that packet, you know exactly what it's going to taste like. and your brain's going, yes, I know, I already know. And so you think you've tasted it, but you haven't. So it's really weird.
Yeah, so the chemicals come through the air because they've got all sorts of chemicals. The food chemists have done PhDs on this to make it hyper palatable, and it's got a whole bunch of things in the salt and vinegar, which I'm addicted to, which I solve by not having any at all. And then they also have little particles on the surface, which when you open it and you provide a bit of a push on the packet, they come into the air. And you can't see it with the naked eye, but you can with this Schlerin, Schlierin photography. Look it up on Wikipedia. So what's happening is that's part of their diabolical plan. The smell comes in and you're going, oh, my God. And in Marcel Proust's Days of Future Past or Remembrance or whatever, he talks about going to the village and smelling or going into a cafe in Paris and smelling the Madeleine cake, and suddenly he has a memory of his aunt's village. And so smell is the most basic sense we have. Every living creature, including bacteria, have a sense of smell. So by deliberate, I don't know if they've deliberately organised it, but I'm guessing that they've deliberately organised it. So when you open the packet, the smell comes out and you think, oh, yes, I'm coming to use salt and vinegar chips.
I think one of the challenges, though, is if you're maybe trying to give up salt and vinegar chips, just smelling them's not going to be enough, is it? Because once you've opened the packet, you're going to eat them. So, yeah, the diabolical plan to get you to eat more.
It's hard. Alex, look, Dr. Alex, thank you for being so observant. I never thought about it, but now I think back to my particular addictions. Yes, the smell is very important.
It's almost like a haze in the air. Thanks, Alex. Kate in Dramana. Dr. Kate, so you got a question about our eyes.
Hi, doctors. I was just wondering why when we're tired or when we just wake up, our eyes are bloodshot.
In some cases, at night, the room is less humid, and so you've got a drier atmosphere. You're a little baby. How old? How old?
She's 1.
Oh, okay. So he or she's past cruising, and they're sort of trying to climb up things?
She is.
Okay. So another thing is that not everybody shuts their eyes all the way, and it might be that during the night your eyes open a little bit and they dry out. Another factor is that you generate different liquids during the day and the night. On average, you generate 1.5 litres of saliva, which is not your eyes, 1.5 litres of saliva per day, but most of it in the day and very little at night. And the bacteria that live in your mouth, they die every 20 minutes, and new bacteria come and take over. And so by the time you open your mouth in the morning, as my daughter put it to me delicately, hey, Daddy, you smell like a bum. So in the same way, the lacrimal glands on the upper outer corners of each eye, I'm guessing, I'm not 100% sure, I'm guessing that they might drop their production. So it's a bunch of those factors together. But do you always wake up with eyes bloodshot or just occasionally?
Just occasionally, but I'm tired from my daughter, so I have bloodshot eyes right now.
Look, from my experience, and you'll be okay in 5 years' time, so 2029 you should be right.
I look forward to that time then.
Thanks, Kate. We've got Cam in Victoria. Dr. Cam, what is your question about protein?
Hello, everyone. I once read in a book years ago that carbohydrates and proteins may conflict digestively as they use sort of opposite digestive juices. Wondering if this is true or not. I've never heard you talk about it.
No, our bodies are just so amazing. Like, it's really great that they don't rely on us to direct our digestion. It just happens while you're sleeping. But the thing with protein, like let's say you eat something rich in protein, like a big piece of meat, your body cannot just release that down into the small intestine where most of the digestion and absorption happens. So if you had a meat sandwich, you'd start breaking down the bread first because your stomach, it's kind of like a washing machine, mulches everything up. And as it gets down to little tiny particles called chyme, it squirts them on into the small intestine where most of the digestive action happens. So in your small intestine, you've got these things called villi. They look like hairbrush bristles. And they've got a lot of carbohydrate digesting enzymes on the surface. But once the receptors go, oh, here comes the meat, well, then your pancreas will start kicking in and secrete digestive enzymes as well as other cofactors that help activate the other enzymes that exist in the gut to digest up proteins and fats. So your body is like, your digestion is like an orchestra. It can all be playing at once to maximise the amount of food that you can digest and absorb.
Is there a slight time delay between digesting the carbohydrates and then the proteins?
There will be a time delay because of that mechanical aspect. Interestingly, your stomach empties at a consistent energy density rate.
What? Not a volume, not so many mils per minute.
No, and back when I was a paediatric dietitian, I did a study on gastric emptying in children who had a condition called cystic fibrosis, where digestion's impaired. And our body mulches up this chyme and then it goes, right, that's the right energy density. So if something's not energy dense, like a slice of bread, it'll get to be chyme and squirt it out first. The protein, big piece of meat, it's got to break it up into little particles so it can turn it into chyme. It's a bit higher in energy, so it's likely to come after the bread. But in reality, it's a bit of a mix of all of it.
And what's the number? How many? Is it a certain number of kilojoules per second or minute or hour?
It's per minute. And, honestly, I'd have to go and look up my
The
PhD, but there's a lot of dust on it, so I might have trouble finding the page. But it was around something like, I'm going to say around like 40 kilojoules a minute, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Does that help, Cam?
That's great. Really great answer. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you. We've got Angelo in Perth. Angelo, what do you want to know?
Hey, doctors. I'm just wondering, because pigs are so close to humans, can they get drunk?
You're talking about the wobble scale. And the wobble scale has been devised to measure the drunkenness of an animal. And it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. At wobble 1, you feed the animal alcohol and you push it and nothing happens. Wobble 2, you push it rocks around a little bit and then comes back to vertical. Wobble 3, you push it and it falls over and gets up again. Wobble 4, mate, you push it falls over, it doesn't get up. The king of animal alcohol breakdown is the hamster. It's got so many versions of a chemical called alcohol dehydrogenase that you can feed a hamster the equivalent of you drinking 2 bottles of vodka in 10 minutes and they're still at wobble 1. They won't fall over. They just wipe out the alcohol like crazy. At the other end are elephants who are close to wobble 4 and they've got virtually no alcohol dehydrogenase. So when they're drinking, say, a rotten rock melon or watermelon that they found on the road, they can get pretty drunk. Pigs are sort of in between. They're kind of like where we are. And so to answer your question, long involved answer, yes, pigs can get drunk.
Right, okay.
Great.
But like as much as us or where are they on the scale?
I can't remember. Like Claire, it's gone out of my memory. New stuff has come into my head and the old stuff's been pushed out. I do know that hamsters are at one end and elephants at the other, and I can't remember where pigs are. In fact, I can't even remember where humans are on that scale. But, 2 bottles of vodka in 10 minutes, that was the equivalent of what they drank, and they showed no effects, the hamsters.
Oh, my God. Thanks,
cool.
Angelo.
Thank you, Dr.
Thanks,
Angelo.
guys.
In the midst of Science with Dr. Karl, Professor Claire Collins joins us right now answering all your nutrition questions. Sarah on Gadigal land. Now, Sarah, you've got a question about plants. Talk us through this one.
Yeah, hey, professors. Yeah, I've got a question about bitter and strong-tasting vegetables and their effect on controlling blood sugar levels. So I'm talking about things like cauliflower, watercress, fenugreek, Brussels sprouts, all those kind of lovely veggies like that. And I just wondered if you could comment on the evidence. Does it help with blood sugar? If it does, how should I eat them? Raw? How much? How often? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so all of those vegetables like the brassica family you mentioned, like Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, they're relatively low in carbohydrate compared to all the dietary fibres and the nutrients that are packed in there with them. So you can have a pretty generous serve, like you could have a great big cooked cup of them and then still not really get that much carbohydrate, like maybe about the same amount as 1 slice of bread. So that means that your blood sugar won't rise as much compared to if you had, and I'm being dramatic here, like if you had a cup of sugar the same weight. So that's the primary effect, is that you'll get a slower rise. They take a little bit longer to digest because of the fibre that's packed in with them. But interestingly, there is actually some research on some particularly bitter plants, like bitter melon, and that's more of a Southeast Asian plant, where it seems to have some extra bioactives that help your insulin work better, or that can help stimulate some of the gut hormones that make you feel satisfied. And there is a lot of research happening on that. But in general, all of those vegetables, having a variety of cooked and raw, will help you get that lower rise in your blood sugars, and trying to have them, at a couple of main meals a day. In Australia, the recommendation is for 5 serves of vegetables, where we call a serve half a cup cooked or 1 cup if it's salad. But, there's only about 5% of people who eat that amount. So if you leave all your veggies just until dinner time, it's almost impossible to eat 5 serves of vegetables. Like, we never eat 5 cups of salad at dinner time. So I think trying to, if possible, get some veggies in at breakfast time or as snacks like raw carrots, and then have some at each meal, and that'll help you with a lower rise in your blood sugars all around.
I have been... Oh, sorry, Dr. Karl.
No, I was just pondering on Professor Claire's wisdom. Go ahead, please. Sarah?
Yeah, so I am probably one of those people who has the privilege of always eating a lot of veggies, and I actually love, the older I get, the more I crave better vegetables. And if around Christmas time and stuff, when people are just feeding me rich food, often I'll just crave, I'll go and buy a whole cabbage and I'll eat it slowly over the next few days just to sort of recover. I have been trying to work out how to use bitter melon. It is, even though I love bitter stuff, it is very bitter. So I'm sort of been asking different people for whom it's a traditional ingredient, how to cook it to best effect.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
The other thing for me is at my life stage, I'm postmenopausal. Unfortunately, it's just really hard to get my BMI down.
Yes.
I might be increasing my muscle, which might be why my weight isn't changing much, but I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope that I'll actually be able to lose much weight now.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking for new ways to sort of try and stay healthy. Yeah.
And that's really wise. My friend who did a whole PhD research on weight change at menopause, she found that there was no discount if you already had a healthy lifestyle. Everybody gains weight. And it's not fair, but what she did show is the people who didn't, they did something different like what you're doing. They ate more veggies, they walked more, and it's really, really unfair. But as we go through menopause, we have to change it up, and that's what will help you resist with the weight gain. So every way you can figure to get those veggies in. And I just say with some of the weird tasting ones, sometimes a little bit in a stir fry is a great way to mask the taste, or you don't notice it.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. We've got Anna in Jules, New South Wales. Anna, what's your question?
Good morning, doctors. My question is, if you've got rheumatoid arthritis, should you follow a specific diet for inflammation and stuff?
Yeah, that's a really good idea about trying to follow an anti-inflammatory diet. And you're going to think, gosh, he's a cracked record. But the things that reduce inflammation is phytonutrients, so nutrients from plants, then having healthy types of fats, mostly olive oil, which is monounsaturated. Our bodies are really amazing. When we break down fats, we can turn them into compounds that either increase inflammation or that decrease inflammation. And interestingly, the fatty acids that are in the olive oil, the monounsaturated and the omega-3s, they tend to get converted into anti-inflammatory chemicals. So that's also things like fatty fish. But there has been some studies. I looked at this massive review of all research on all supplements and all diets. It was done in Europe. It took them ages to do it, and they got all hands on deck. But there wasn't a lot of evidence for rheumatoid arthritis except for these omega-3 long-chain fish oil fats. And the evidence was of moderate quality, which is good, for a small but positive effect on pain. So what I suggest to people then is buy your bottle of omega-3s. They get incorporated into your red blood cell membranes, and they live for about 3 months. So you need to do a 3-month trial, which is roughly one of those big bottles, and then see, is your pain and your symptoms any better? And then you'll know if you're a responder, if you have rheumatoid arthritis.
And Claire, do walnuts carry omega-3s?
Yes, walnuts contain some of the long-chain fats, as do things like there's a little bit in avocado. Fatty fish is the highest one, though. There are a few other foods, so you can Google that to find
Does that mean
those,
I'm allowed to eat sardines at home?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
in the
so
house.
probably so long as you're by yourself or you only got other sardine
Do you know
lovers
that my
in there.
family booted me out into the snow once?
Because you were eating
Why?
sardines.
In a caravan.
I can understand that.
Because they were smelly?
Apparently to them, I thought they were lovely.
Well, you probably like mackerel as well. But interestingly, the canned fish, the fatty fish that do have more of these omega-3s, they're relatively lower cost compared to fresh fish, which is so expensive. So look for the canned fish. And again, they go great if you chop them on a pizza, and then you've got all those other veggies chopped up on there. So that's a great way to boost the phytonutrients that are helpful as part of the anti-inflammatory diet. You've probably also heard the Mediterranean diet. It incorporates all of those good things we just said.
That's wonderful news. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna. We've got Dave in Sydney with a bit of a hypothetical. Dave, hit it.
Yeah, good morning, doctors. This is something I've pondered for quite a while. How does the health effects of like your highly processed meats, ham, bacon, etc., compare to, say, smoking a cigarette? If you ate several pieces of ham or bacon every day, it's going to have some detrimental health effects.
There is actually, you know who's looked at that? And it's I forget their name, but it's the American organisation who says, could this thing cause cancer or not? And I'm pretty sure that in terms of carcinogenicity, which just means can this thing cause cancer or not, that they're kind of up there in the same category. But that's not factoring in how much people usually have. Now, we all know about the dangers of smoking, but I think less do we know about the relationship between processed meats and higher risk for bowel cancer. And I'm going to tell you a story. So when I saw the research evidence from the World Cancer Research Fund change, and it was back in the teens of this century, I think, or it might have even been at the end of the 2000s. I've never bought processed meat since. When I saw that the World Cancer Research Fund said there is no safe amount of processed meat, the optimal amount is 0. So in my family, there's a history of bowel cancer and younger age bowel cancer. And so I think, if you're in a position to not eat it, then just don't eat it. Hey, and I'll tell you another little secret. So you know how a lot of recipes, they want you to chop up bacon to give a dish flavour? I've actually worked out that if you brown onion and garlic and then put in some sunflower or pumpkin seeds, it's actually just as good, probably better, because now that I don't eat bacon, I can't compare. But it gives you the crunchy bit and the super duper flavour, and you do release some of those naturally occurring glutamates that are the yum factor that gets added into some foods. So, Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
so do your best to avoid it.
I'm not a smoker or a big eater of processed meats either, but I've just always wondered how it could compare, because I think if you had, like a smoker might smoke 4 or 5, 10, 20 cigarettes a day. My God, if you ate 20 pieces of bacon a day, you're going to have some health problems.
Well, you don't want to end up with lung cancer and bowel cancer, do you?
Now, Claire, you and I must be brother and sister.
My God, no, not, yeah.
Sorry. Claire, you and I must be brother and sister, because when I read that same report, I just stopped eating processed meats.
Oh, right. Well, I'd be really happy to be your sister, Dr. Karl.
Oh, shucks.
You flattered me there.
So sweet.
Yeah.
We've got Paul in Canberra before we get to another song. Paul, what do you want to know?
Hi, doctors. Thanks for taking my call. Look, I really enjoy fresh ginger, lemon and honey tea. I was wondering if using boiling water damage any of the beneficial vitamins and minerals, or would it be better to use a cooler sort of water?
Yeah. Okay, so if you're thinking about preserving the goodness in food, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Claire, I thought that with regard to vegetables, the way to preserve the maximum amount of vitamins, which can be damaged by temperature and which are water soluble, is to heat them up, but in a nuka, in a microwave, or number 2, heat them up by steaming them so they're not kissing against the water. Number 3, boil them in the water, but then the water soluble ones go into the water. So that's the grade of losing the vitamins. So if you're heating things up in water and you're getting them up to boiling temperature, you will be knocking off some of the temperature-sensitive vitamins.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. But I think you're probably having that because you really enjoy it. So I think have it the way you enjoy it, and just be reassured that the other foods you're eating are going to be the biggest source of your vitamins and minerals. But things can get destroyed by heat and by light. and you want to cook it for the shortest amount of time with the least amount of water.
And what you said about enjoyment is just so true.
Yeah.
So I was looking at the packets of milk in the barista, and to my surprise, almond milk had virtually no nutrients, even though it takes something like 10,000 kilograms of water to make 1 kilogram of almonds. They're really water hungry, and almonds are just so rich in nutrients. And I was saying, but why are you having the almond milk? And I was thinking, all that matters is the nutrition. And she said, because it tastes nice. And I suddenly realised that she's speaking. It is good to have pleasure from food.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're enjoying it, then just enjoy the taste. But I kind of feel like there's like something about plant milks that people don't know. So I was recently at the supermarket, and sometimes I just pick a product and I go, I want to see what's in this. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at the plant milks and I thought, wow, I wonder if people read all the labels and saw all the food additives, would they still think that this is an amazingly healthy food? And so some of the plant milks actually contain this category of food additives, Dr. Karl and Dr. Lucy, called emulsifiers, to try and make the watery layer stick with the nutty, fatty layer. And there's current research saying how emulsifiers can disrupt your microbiome, potentially erode the mucus layer, make you more susceptible to inflammatory bowel disease, and, on and on. For some people, allergic reactions. So I'm wondering, I'm looking into the future and thinking, wow, I wonder if in the future there's going to be regulation around the amount and the type of emulsifiers that are allowed to be used. So I would say just take care not to go overboard on any food that's got a lot of emulsifiers in it. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Kai in Perth, what's your question?
Good morning, doctors. Dr. Karl, in one of your recent episodes, someone asked your take on the topic that says energy is not created nor destroyed, it can only be transferred. You said that that's true only in a universe that doesn't expand. And I was just wondering if the universe uses energy to expand, and if so, how?
The universe does expand, but it doesn't use energy to expand in the same way that a rocket uses energy to go forward. But if you go into general relativity, which is his 1915 theory, he talks about in his field equations the expansion related to the energy density per unit volume, and then the expansion naturally comes out of that. Now, what we've got at the moment is a thing called dark energy, which we use as a convenient way to explain it. However, it's got the word dark, which means we don't know what it means. We haven't even found what it is yet. It makes the equations work. And if you're the one who works out what dark energy is, Dr. Kai, you're in there for, as they say in the trade, a trip to the Blue Room or a Nobel Prize. So do your reading on general relativity and eventually the answer will come out, Dr. Kai. Okay, I look forward to you getting the Nobel Prize. Thank you, Dr. Kai.
Great. Thanks, Guy. We got Spencer and Gaimea. Spencer, you've got a question about the carnivore diet.
Hello, doctors. How are we? Just wanted to know more about the carnivore diet and the effects of it. Is it a fad? Is it like a healthy option to do? It's a pretty easy one to follow, so I was considering on trying to jump onto it to lose some weight.
Yeah, you might lose a few friends, but I'll tell you why. It's a pretty easy one to follow because it's meat, and meat essentially. But because it's very narrow, you then don't get the dietary fibre. That's the biggest nutrient you miss out on. And so your microbiome, or the bugs that live in your colon, they're not really going to be very happy. They'll kind of be starved. It's possible that you'll develop constipation. But when you only eat meat and you don't get carbohydrate, what happens is you start metabolizing body fats, and then you produce these things called ketones. And that's what you'll notice after about 3-ish days. Your breath will start smelling like nail polish, and that's the acetone that comes out on your breath because you're digesting ketones. So you'll get a furry mouth. You'll need to clean your teeth a lot. People might tell you got bad breath. But those ketones, they actually do inhibit your appetite. But in the studies that have been done on the carnivore type diets, and these extreme low carb diets are in the same category, they show that people get very bored. So you don't go away and eat 5 kilos of all, proteins basically, because you get very bored very quickly. But you do lose weight. But, there is some research concerned about the long-term risks apart from short-term benefits. So, like watch this space. If you can't stop you from doing it, but if you do, leverage that to go and then get advice on a healthy pattern long-term.
And amazingly, Spencer, I've got some homework for you. Sorry, cough there. So type in Science News, and the title of the article is, I was reading it this morning by an amazing coincidence. Staying on the keto diet long-term could carry health risks, and it's dated the 19th of September. That is your homework, Dr. Spencer. I'm sorry to give you homework. You don't have to do it.
That's all right. I'll definitely search that up. I've done the diet before, and that was exactly the problem. I got over it and got bored of it and didn't want to continue it because it's just the same thing.
Yeah. And I don't know if you lost any friends, but that's a risk because when some of that protein does make it to your microbiome in the colon and you produce hydrogen sulfide farts, and that's like rotten egg gas.
Oh,
so
they're good, aren't they?
watch out.
Yeah.
So it's just both ends, is it?
Yeah. That's what I mean, why you may well lose some friends.
I love that we've ended this episode on farts, of course. Claire Collins.
Hurrah!
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode. If we want to find out more of your stuff, what you do, where should we go?
Yeah, come to No Money, No Time. All the tabs have all that information. The people wanting that study go to the podcast tab and it's number 1 on the list.
Amazing. That study linking, or at least looking at the links between nutrition and ADHD. You can check that out. We'll also chuck a link for you in the show notes of this podcast episode, wherever you get your podcasts. Dr. Karl, I'll catch you next week.
Peachy keen.
And that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Science with Dr. Karl. Professor Claire Collins is a friend of the show. If you want to check out more of her guest episodes here on the podcast, take a scroll through the feed, search wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Lucy Smith. This episode was produced by Jazz Williams, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Dave Marchese here from the Triple J Hack team. Hey, if you love Dr. Karl's podcast like I do, you might enjoy the Hack podcast as well. Each day, we bring you the news that matters to you, from the latest science on climate change to what's happening in politics and news around the world. The Hack Podcast. It's your daily fix of the news you need to know. Get it wherever you're listening now.